So unfortunately, the God-given originality of their facial features have been erased, and they become all sort of, okay, so anyway, when I was a little kid, I started drawing. I really enjoyed drawing. In fact, this little picture sketch that I had, do you guys know what the LG Dare is? It's like a little non-smartphone. One of the last of the non-smartphone. It was pretty smart. It has a little sketch pad on there, and I sketched myself reading the Bible, So, but I did major in fine art, studio art, and so I was interested in visual stuff. Like right here, this is fantastic. Pastor James asked me, would you like to hold a gathering at the Knightsbridge Theater? And since I'm going to be talking about the topic of beauty, I thought it would be just natural to talk about it in a fine art gallery like this one, I did chicken out because if you want to be an artist, if you want to be a fine artist, you have to be one diligent fellow. You have to be on your feet a lot. You have to be, running around. And I didn't have that kind of motivation, so I chickened out. And I went into psychology instead. I thought that psychology somehow would be better living, But that was a profoundly miscalculated move on my part, Anyway, when I was going through college in my young adult life, I got into an unhealthy interest in literature and beatnik poetry. Do you guys know what that is?
Yeah.
Oh, you kids know what beatnik stuff is? Okay, so the beatniks have an influence on this generation. So it's kind of important that we know what that stuff is, right? This has a bearing on our lecture today, so keep your thumb on that. Next, I studied acupuncture and oriental medicine. I finished it, and I started going to medical mission, and I also started going to church, Downey First Church at the turn of the millennium. So I started going to church. I became a professing Christian at the year 2000. So I'm a 14-year-old baby Christian, I taught Spanish for a while because since I lived in Ecuador, they speak Spanish there. I continued the studies, and for a brief while I ran a day spa out of all things, which is another beauty industry type of stuff, just before entering seminary, and got ordained as a Presbyterian minister in 2011. These guys were both at the ordination. Thank you so much. So enough about me. About the gathering. Why the gathering? What's the big idea? What is the gathering about? Well, people of faith already gather in churches, right? How many of you go to churches here? We all go to churches? Okay, we all go to churches, right? But unchurched people, they gather together on their own too. If you have unbelieving friends, they still get together, have their own parties and stuff, right? What we want to do is, we want the gathering like this to do away with this mutual exclusion where church people gather just inside churches and unchurched people gather amongst their own. We want to kind of create this space where they can commingle, right? So, what's the platform that we're both standing on is culture. We both share culture. We might not have the same world views, but we grew up watching same TV shows. We grew up going to the same museums. We listen to same music. Okay, I'm going to just name a few bands just out of... How many of you know who Radiohead is? Yeah, you know who Radiohead is. You guys know, right? I mean, there's a kind of... I just had to throw that out there to see if that works, But the thing is, we don't want to be too churchy. Because church, when we do the churchy thing at church, And what we want to do is we don't want to put the burden on the unbelievers we don't want to dominate that space, basically. You know what I mean? So if they get to hear the gospel in one of our talks, if they get to hear the testimony of someone like Pastor James, great. But one of the things that we discuss is that we're not going to be overtly churchy about it. It will be somewhere in the middle ground between church and unbelief. And a lot of us live in that space, don't we? Yeah? Okay. So, I'm going to talk about beauty. Why do we talk about beauty? Why? Before I started, I realized I bit off more than I can chew. This is a huge subject. Beauty. We don't really actually sit there and think about beauty, do we? Unless you're smoking something, you're not really just thinking about beauty. it's really kind of out there kind of question. You know what I mean? So anyway, what I want to do is I want to trace the primitive people. How many of you believe here in that evolution is a possible reality? Evolution could be possible. Okay, so let's say it is possible. Okay, just for argument's sake. Okay, I go way back before civilization, and then if you were taught at the public schools, you were taught that there was probably cave people, primitive people, right? And the primitive people were engaging with their reality, and they had nature. They were looking at the nature surrounding them, right? And I'm sure this idea of beauty probably developed from very early on. I'm going to tell you right now, that's the primary level. Before you start thinking about other things, like before you're training, before all the formal training that you might receive about aesthetics at school, what is beautiful, what is proper or not, there's something very natural about what the beauty exists in nature anyway, So I'm going to call that the primary level. It is a very primal experience of human being. When you engage the world, you see that beauty exists. It's as simple as that. And I notice also that the beauty that we engage with is primarily sensorial. Let me explain what I mean. We have, how many senses do we have that we know of? 5 senses, right? We have primarily the visual. The beauty, there's 7. Primarily the visual, right? And then we have the auditory. Have you heard voices that are beautiful? Yeah, right? Yeah. Joshua has a beautiful voice. And while I'm here, right? While you're here, you do. Olfactory. Have you ever had a fragrance that you thought, that's a beautiful smell? And then there are some not so beautiful smells, like rotting carcasses and stuff like that. And then there's the gustatory. Do you guys know what that word means? Gustatory? It's the sense of taste, right? Yeah. I don't know if there's actually beautiful taste or not, but we're going to go into that as I just kind of, go into this stream of consciousness of what beauty is. Yeah. And then there's finally the tactile. What's tactile? Yeah, it's a sense of touch, If you have a blind person, they will touch your face, and they'll see if you're smiling or crying. They'll see what is pleasing to the touch, So I said the key word right there. When it comes to beauty, it's primarily catering to the pleasure. It's connected to pleasure, right? When it's beautiful, it's pleasing you in one sense or another. Am I right? Okay. And also, it aims or indicates at some sort of perfection, right? If you have a painting here, if you have an artist who's really dedicated he's very serious about the piece that he's making, before he did that one, he probably did 10 more equal like that. But he had to progress to this point of perfection. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's the primary level that I want to delve into. And now I'm going to go into the slides. The tons and tons of slides that hopefully will not bore you today. Do you guys know what this is?
Aurora Borealis.
Yeah, the Aurora Borealis, known as the Northern Lights. Beautiful stuff. Have you guys ever seen it in person? You have seen it in person. Fantastic. Oh man. Could you share a little bit about that? Where were you at the time? Alaska?
I was at the beach in St. Andrews and we heard that evening there was going to be the aurora.
Is that because of the latitude? The latitude over St. Andrews is?
Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's great. The closest thing to a borealis that I experienced is when I was in Moscow. The sun goes down at 11. That was bizarre. That was for me as bizarre as unique as Aurora Borealis. But these are the northern lights. Beautiful natural phenomenon, because the light bends a certain refraction and they create phenomenal shades of color. This is just a very tip of the iceberg. You guys know what this is? The stained glass. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Notre Dame. It's the cathedral in France. And it has all the saints in there. You'll notice that in art, people imitate nature. They see what's beautiful in nature and then they try to create something that corresponds to that. What's this? Yeah. While I'm here, right? While I'm in this place, right? Yeah. Beautiful. I mean, how many of you think that is beautiful? I have seen some movies where like outer space people, like Apollo or something, they go outside and they look at that small blue, sphere in the universe, and they are moved to tears because that's just how beautiful the Earth is. Now, I'm going to point towards some things that might not be so obvious, but you might have known it, but I'm going to just call to your attention, right? In nature, there are shapes, right? There are some shapes, very rudimentary shapes. We have curves here. There's curved lines here, right? You see that. You see also that there's complex shapes. There are things known as fractals, where you have an image that's smaller, you get a smaller version of that image, and capillaries they work in the principle of fractals. They all become the minuscule version of the larger things. And you see that happening in the veins of these leaves, right? How many of you think that the leaves are beautiful? Pretty beautiful, that's nice, right? Color's pleasant, Horizontal line. This is the ocean right here, the horizon. We have also the horizontal line. Very simple line. But how many times have you just gone out to the sunset and just looked out into the open? It could be a cityscape. It could be just anything. You're looking out and you see this horizontal line and you feel kind of something that's pleasing to you, Just inside you just go, man, there's something secure about that line, I don't know if innately you feel that there is something stable about that horizontal line. There's also this kind of horizontal line here. You have I don't know. I just found these photos online. It's pretty. I want to share with you. And then we have vertical lines. Trees go up and down. So we have the horizontal lines and the vertical lines. Very, very rudimentary shapes, but when they register in our eyes, it creates a sense of rhythm, and it pleases us, right? There we go. This is a mixture of vertical lines, water falling, and then we have also some stratification over here of the rocks, right? Beautiful. Horizontal lines and vertical lines. Ooh-ah, right? This is, you know what this is? This is light. If you reflect light at a certain with some kind of prism or something, you see these bands. They're different wavelengths of light, And these are running across kind of vertically because they're segmented vertically, and then we have the spectrum that goes along the surface horizontally. Right? So very basics. You scan things upwards and sideways. Have you guys ever done that when you met a beautiful woman? You go up and down and you sideways? Okay, just kidding. See, now I don't know. I don't know if that would work at a church. Would that work at a church? No? Okay. Now there's curves. Since we're talking about beautiful women, there's curves, right? Yeah, there's curvy linear features in our geological formations. Fantastic. This probably took a long time to form, when an artist takes his time to produce his art, I would say that nature itself takes a lot of time, pressure to create these works of art, Another kind of, this is the S, I guess, I don't know, backwards S, Z, one of those curvilinear. We have curves naturally occurring in our own bodies. Our vertebrae, our backs are actually not straight like one line, but it has an S curvature. Some people have curvature that's more pronounced than others, but we have also spirals. I don't know what kind of flower this is. Would you know? Would you ladies know what? Is it a tulip? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe a water lily? Yeah, it's okay. Swirls. I had to put that there because I'm a big coffee drinker, and when you put a little bit of milk or cream in there, there's a natural, as it dissolves into the coffee, it creates a spectacular visual shape, that it's never the same. It's always different. Chambered nautilus, also the spiral. Have you guys ever seen this movie called Pi? Darren Aronofsky, you've seen it, right? If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's pretty good. It talks about the patterns in nature, especially in the realms of mathematics. More spirals. More spirals. This is, our cosmos, The universe is that you see, because actually it's multiple. They say this multiverse. You know, it's not a universe, but there's like a lot of different, you know, cosmic bodies and a lot of time stuff. I'm not gonna go there because, you know, again, I'm gonna just take 2 steps back and then go to the next slide. So this is what I'm gonna sum up. In nature, out of simple lines, shapes, and color, and their combination, emerges a primal agreement in the human experience that there is beauty in nature, right? Still with the primary, okay? Before you fall asleep. All right. Now this was gonna go into the auditory, still in the primary, but auditory. There's beautiful sounds in nature. This was gonna be a sound. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but there was a guy that slowed down the sound. He recorded crickets chirping, and then he slowed the sound down, and it sounds exactly like human voices singing to God. It sounds like angels, and I wish I had that right now, because that would have really kind of completed the experience, but we're going to forego this for this time. As it is, this is kind of a prototype meeting anyway, right?
But did you get it out?
Yeah.
Can you get it online?
Yeah, you can get online. I mean, if you want, I'll send you the links tomorrow sometime. Also the instruments. There's a lot of, we're just playing instruments right now. Do you guys know what this is right here?
Violin?
It's a violin. You know what kind of violin?
Viola?
Oh, it's a violin. It's violin, and you were right. But it's a special kind of violin. It's one of a kind violin. It's very expensive violin. It's like world fame. It's a Stradivarius. Yeah, you can tell because it's right there. You can see. Yeah, it's inside. How much? Do you know how much they run? Over $1 million? I think it's over $1 million. Most of them, anyway. I was gonna do the opera. You know. Do you guys know that song? Oh mio bambino caro. A man should not be singing it, but it's a very beautiful opera, and I like to go to that. It's like my go-to opera of music because when I was a young man, my dad told me this story. He was on a fishing boat, you know, and he used to be a radio communicator on the fishing boat, and he was for long periods at the sea, just bunch of smelly men, you know. And they would get off the ship once in a blue moon and then land on the shore. And they would go about on the land, you know. And he heard one time this beautiful music coming from somebody's window. And as if he was just like enchanted by a siren, he was just, going to where the source of the sound, right? And there was a light, and he was just standing there as a young man, listening to this beautiful music. And as he tells me this story, I could swear I was there. It's like I heard it myself, It's this very bizarre kind of a mystical experience that I'm just sharing with you right now. Did I share that story with you now? No? Okay. How many of you know what this is? This is a culture test. We're going to see... what did you say? Oh, no, very close, very close. Yeah. Starts with the same name. The name letter. Ella Fitzgerald. Yeah. How about this? You were just singing a song, weren't you? Yeah. Marvin Gaye. Yeah. Their voices are beautiful. Right? I'm just making a point that these are people that we pay a lot of money to go see. Do you guys know who this is? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What does he sing? The trademark song. Yeah, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. He's a big guy, right? Not a very attractive fellow, I wouldn't say. But he has the voice of an angel. When you hear him singing, like, oh man, who is that angel cherub singing this song? How do you say his name? Kamakawala? Yeah. Olfaction, going to the smell. I was just researching online that the industry, any kind of industry, spends billions and billions of dollars in particular odors and smells. The fragrance, perfumery industry, very, very important. And then we're going to see why. We're going to keep moving on and we're going to see why. You guys know what this is? It's lilac flower. Very fragrant, aromatic flower. Perfumes and scents. They go back as old, they go so far back to the times of Egypt. 2000 BC and further beyond. The first perfumers were experts gathering spices and flowers to make a lasting scent, There's a lot of science that goes into this also. Spices to season your food, because a lot of your flavor comes from the smell, right? Gustatory pathway. Overkill. Too much information. Beautiful taste. I don't know if taste can be beautiful. It's like when you eat something, it's good, right? It tastes good, right? It's delicious. But I'm playing with the language a little bit. It does talk about taste, you know. I want to see if he has good taste in music, if that person has good taste in art, you know. So it does kind of talk about, it denotes a particular preference over a diversity of style. Now, since we're talking about style, we're going to fashion. Pastor James believes that fashion is important. It's people employing creativity to look better, you know. And then there's a whole host of other things like fabrics, certain fabrics that are better suited for weather and all that kind of stuff. The tactile, smooth pebbles, do they feel more beautiful against your skin versus these thorn bushes? You know, there's the tactile has also the dimension of beauty. Also, smooth skin. Inevitably we age, right? Also gravity is against us in the process of aging. So things start sagging, right? So they always want to lift it up and try to keep everything, you know, at that particular tension and smoothness. It's a huge industry that's built around this. You know? Do you know what this is? Florence Colgate. I just found out about this while I'm doing research for this talk. She was voted as the most beautiful woman in Great Britain, I think 2014, 2013 maybe. And it was a cosmetics campaign that they were doing. And they had a bunch of aesthetes and scientists that were going to create an objective marker. So they have some idea that the proportions of the distance between the eyes and the where your cheekbones lie. Remember I told you about the horizontal and the vertical? There's some formula that dictates whether you're beautiful or not. Actually, by their standard, it's like, you know, the awesomest specimen of female beauty. Would you guys agree?
Yeah.
She's good.
Yeah? Okay, thank you for being honest. I was going to say she's alright. I've seen better, right? Okay, so we're gonna go into a little deeper now, you know? We're moving beyond the primary because, you know, it's not just about looks, right? It's not just about the tactile stuff. We have a brain, and we have thoughts, we have other processes, the secondary level, right? Remember what I'm doing now? I'm retracing the human experience of encounter with beauty. You know, it's not just about looking at things now and going, wow, that's a beautiful sky. It's actually delving a little deeper into why the beautiful sky. You know, there are some dimensions like the abstract. You know, there's a lot of thought. There's creativity going on when we're engaging beauty at this level. We also have something that's conceptual. Concepts begin to emerge, and there's the issue of originality. If you have seen the same thing over and over again, like in Southern California, I don't know if you feel like me, when it rains in Southern California, I think that's the most beautiful day ever. You know? Because we have so much sun, right? You know? When it rains, it's beautiful. When it's windy, it's like, wow, I feel like I'm somewhere else. You know, you feel the novelty of it, right? And also, at the secondary level of beauty, there is something of an insight, you know? Sometimes you engage something, a story, you read a poem, and then you have a eureka aha moment that might actually even change the way you live your life. You know, it engages you at the level of the intellect, at your emotions. You know, there's also narrativity, there's story. Why are some stories more beautiful than others? Right? There's also character. You know, if Florence Colgate was found drunk, urinating on a homeless person, you might be like, oh, that's not a beautiful woman at all, that's disgusting, you know, right? And also it's affective. It actually it engages with our emotion. You know, it makes us feel good. If there's something beautiful going on in the story, we feel good. You know, if there is divine justice, what do you call that? Poetic justice that's being carried out in a story. We feel good about that. We feel that some righteousness or justice was served. And when there's that kind of balance, we're happy. So, at the secondary level, it appeals to the intellect with connection between reality and imagination. Right? So, I think that we want to graduate. I think as we get older, we want to always move from just the primary, the simple, to go a little bit deeper into the secondary. But I'm not here to preach that. It's just what it is. I'm just outlining what it is, the primary level and the secondary level. Also pursue some perfection of some kind. You know, if you have ever seen a poet or a writer, they're not happy with the first draft. Even with pastors, you know, when you've done your manuscripts, at the end of your manuscript, you never go before the pulpit going, oh, that's good enough. You know, I'm gonna try it out now and see if it preaches. It never works that way. You're always like, you know, why did... There's so many good thoughts that have been going on throughout your week, but they somehow evaporate when you're writing them down on paper, right? So by the time you get to the pulpit, they're all gone. All the good stuff somehow disappeared, and all you have is the manuscript. That happens to me quite a lot, you know. So we're gonna go to the second level of beauty a little further, and this is gonna seem a little arbitrary. And if it seems arbitrary, you have to kind of forgive me, because it is. It's a stream of consciousness stuff. I was just gathering information, and I'm doing the best with what I can over here. It is beyond the sensorial, you know. At this level, you're not touching stuff, and you're not just seeing stuff, you know. You're hearing descriptions of stuff, and you're actually conjuring it in your mind. Have you guys ever read a story that goes on to film, and you were disappointed by what they did with that story? That's because what was going on in your mind was better somehow. You know, when you were engaging that written information, what your mind was producing was more satisfying than what the visual people are trying to feed to you, you know? We're going to be, since we left off on Florence Colgate, we're going to go a little bit on human beauty. And I'm going to give credit. I told him I wouldn't give credit, but this is coming from Alejandro's insight last Monday. We've been talking about this for years, but according to Alejandro Shin, who's sitting in the back like professor over there, I just reworded it a little bit, but there are four categories at least on why we regard somebody as beautiful. Okay, number one, there are objective, external signs, external scientific measurements of why that person is beautiful. For example, there's a symmetry, right, of features, and there's also flawlessness. Like if you have blemishes all over, that's generally not regarded as beautiful, right? Simple. Can we agree on that? Yeah? Okay. Secondly, we have the holistic. It's not limited to just external features, but remember I told you about the behavior, right? The behavior has to match just the appearance, right? So there's that holistic. It's not limited to external features, but there's the whole being. The person who is always negative and always complaining. That person is, even if they're like supermodels, after a while, you get tired of them, right? Am I right, Pastor Charlie? Just nod your head. Okay, and then there's 3 and 4. This is really the really awesome contributing point that Pastor Alejandro makes, is that we do consider what is beautiful by what majority consensus is. You know, if you are at a school and a bunch of people say, oh yeah, that cheerleader, she's hot, and then everybody else thinks she's great, you know, there is that majority consensus, the beauty that is culture defined, that is majority consensus. And then there's another one. I didn't think about this before, and I gotta give you credit, beauty by familiarity. There are people that from a distance, from the very beginning of your meeting, you might not think that person is beautiful, right? But after you've seen that person over and over again, the more you talk to that person, the more you know that person, you see that person is becoming more and more acceptable to you. And I'm going to give you another example of that. Your mom, you know? Your mom thinks you're beautiful, even if other moms don't think you're beautiful, right? There's people that are familiar to you, that are closer to you, that has this endearing sense of loving you, that sees you as far more attractive than you might be on the first scale, on the objective external scale, right? This is Da Vinci's study of human symmetry, or the Vitruvian man. You guys are familiar with this, right? Yeah. And this is facial asymmetry. This is what is regarded by most people as unattractive, right? I don't know. I don't know if it's actually unattractive. At a very objective level, my senses don't say that these are unattractive. They're just asymmetrical. I'm not assigning any value to them right now. But I want you to just kind of, this is a picture of Ronald Reagan. What was he before he became president? He was an actor. Why was he actor? Was it because he was unattractive? Because he is actually an attractive man, Back in the old days, man, he used to appear in films, the tall guy without a shirt, But this is a study of his symmetry. There's one side of his face that was stitched together in a mirror, and another side, clearly they look different. There's a different, it's not completely symmetrical. Even the president, the former president of the United States. Another thing about beauty in the industry is that they look for, there's some archetype, there's some type that they're always looking for, If they had James Dean once, they're going to look for somebody that looks like James Dean to kind of recreate this same look. They're going to continually try to appeal to our taste. For example, we have Robert Redford here when he was younger. I don't know if you've seen one of his more recent pictures. He doesn't look like that anymore. But they found a pretty close replacement over here, There's a kind of facsimile copying going on, Even within the industry, there's this machinery of trying to get what works from before, This begins to tell me that there's some kind of an agenda that they want to continue, They want to kind of perpetuate. Okay, now we're going to go to classic arts because, this is where I wanted to go in the first place. This is Birth of Venus. Venus is what? The beauty, like the goddess of beauty, right? I think she's the goddess of beauty, or something like that. It's questionable. This is a woman from Tajikistan. I had the pleasure to visit Tajikistan on a medical mission. To them, the unibrow over here is considered beautiful. And when they smile, they have a mouthful of gold teeth. And to them, that's a sign of beauty, This is the next few slides. There's some nudity, so PG. I'm glad you didn't bring any little boys and girls. Oh, okay, not nudity, not this one. This is women of Myanmar. I was actually kind of shocked to see this because they have the elongation of neck and they look quite oriental. They look Asiatic, So I thought that they would be more towards Africa or something, but they have that kind of. They're not, by the way, they're not actually elongating the neck. They're compressing the clavicles. Is going down to make that elongated look. To them, that's beautiful. It's a culturally defined sense of beauty. Now, yeah, I would argue that this is beautiful, but I don't in a bizarre kind of macabre way. These are plates. The Mursi of Africa, they actually open up this slit here, and they gradually put discs, and they stretch it, longer and longer and longer, and then until they get to this, enormously grotesque, very large weights, And I don't know if you're noticing this. Young people in our culture today are doing things that are similar to this, to their earlobes. They put big plugs, and it's just stretching and stretching, and if they take it off, they have this like flap of skin, and it's kind of weird, But tribalism is actually re-emerging in our culture today. So I just want you to be aware of these aesthetic different waves. They come in waves and tides in unexpected ways. Also, this lady, these are scars. These are scars and burns that are formed in ornate ways to decorate the body, like tattoos, face painting in sumo. So the question is, since we have seen some pictures here that are clearly not in any way universal. We can't say that these are all appealing to everybody alike, Can we say that there is a valid objective marker for beauty, objective standard for beauty? or is it purely subjective? Is it just in the eye of the beholder? Now, the reason why this becomes a philosophical issue, as I was having a discussion earlier with one of my church members that used to come to church, Brian, who is a philosophy student, is that what is true? You know, if there's to be an absolute truth about something, there has to be a standard that it can fall under. You know, but if we say, "Oh, beauty is just in the eye of the beholder," then we have just an air of subjectivity in the air. You know, it's just all subjective, and then there is no agreement on what is beautiful and what's not. And he's actually making the same argument for something like morality. Is there moral good and moral bad? Right? If there is no absolute truth about or absolute standard, what might be good for you might not be good for me, and every man to himself. Right? So this is a kind of a question that we kind of have hovering in the air a little bit. I'm going to read a poem by Charles Bukowski. How many of you know who that is? You do? I knew you knew who that is. Okay. Yeah, I had a feeling that this night was for you. Anyway, I'm going to read it for you. Phillips. Have you been to Phillips? If you're my friend, you've been to Phillips at least once.
Yeah.
You've been to Phillips with me, right? You've been to No, you have been. No, you haven't. You've been to Phillips. Yeah. Phillips is an old-time cafe off Alameda Street, just a little north and east of the main post office. It's just down this, it's pretty close. Phillips opens at 5 a.m. and serves a cup of coffee with cream and sugar for a nickel. Nowadays, I think it's 50 cents. They raise it up a little bit, you know. That's 1950s, right? In the early mornings, as the bums come down off Bunker Hill, as they say, with their butts wrapped around their ears, Los Angeles nights have a way of getting very cold. Phillips, they say, is the only place that doesn't hassle us. The waitresses and most of the bums, waitresses are old and most of the bums too. Come down there some early morning. For a nickel, you can see the most beautiful faces in town. Do you guys get that poem? Who's he calling beautiful? The bums, yeah. The homeless people, the old folks that are opening up the coffee shop at 5 o'clock in the morning. Quite different aesthetic from that of the Hollywood executive producers that must have it all jet set and, you know, all the glimmer, you know. He has from a Christian standpoint, this man is a filthy person, you know. But man, there's something that's salvageable from there. I look at sometimes I'm able to see through his eyes. I go, you know what? He's right. I'm going to show you that this is not exclusive to just a few. Sometimes the experience of beauty defies the common requirements of external expectations. You know, we think that one has to look a certain way, like you have to have the symmetry, you have to have the slenderness, you know. But out of the most unexpected places, beauty just emerges and it kind of just strikes you. And there was actually a photographer that did these photo shoots of faces of homeless people, you know. And when you look at their faces, I don't know if my words will add anything. I'll just say nothing for a few seconds and I'll just forward. And you let me know what it is that you experience when you look at their eyes. These are from Finding Grace. It's a book. It's a photo book that a photographer, Lynn Blodgett, did. Faces of America's Homeless. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to romanticize. This is not what I'm doing. I'm just saying that when you look at their faces, there is something that grabs you as character. There's character. There's a kind of a ruggedness. There's a kind of a survival. there's kind of the sense of suffering and the toil that they have endured out in the cold, you know, that has somehow refined their souls. I don't know, I do sound like I'm kind of romanticizing it, but so be it, you know. Why do we romanticize the bearded homeless people? Because of this guy, Walt Whitman. Do you guys know who that is? Yeah, he's who is he?
He's a writer.
Yeah. He's not just any ordinary writer. He's, I would argue, the grandfather of the beat poets. You know, this guy was the guy that celebrated. I'm going to read for you a poem by him. It's just coming from A Song of Myself, the first stanza. I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. I loaf and invite my soul. I lean and loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. My tongue, every atom of my blood, formed from this soil, this air. Born here of parents, born here from parents the same, and their parents the same. I, now 37 years old, in perfect health, begin, hoping to cease not till death. Creeds and schools in abeyance, retiring back a while, sufficed at what they are, but never forgotten. I harbor for good or bad, I permit to speak at every hazard, nature without check, with original energy. So this is a kind of a celebratory, like a kind of a robust poem about celebration of himself and in relation to life. And we also have beauty that comes from the other end. How many of you know who this is? This chick, kind of depressing. Her, you know? Her name, Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson, you know? She wrote a lot. Her themes revolve a lot around the religious too, you know? This is one of her songs, one of her poems. There's a certain slant of light, winter afternoons, that oppresses like the heft of cathedral tunes. Heavenly hurt it gives us, we can find no scar, but internal difference where the meanings are. None may teach it any, 'tis the seal despair, an imperial affliction sent us of the air. When it comes, the landscape listens, shadows hold their breath. When it goes, 'tis like the distance on the look of death. This is a little more morbid and subdued, but nevertheless, there's a shade of beauty there, right? How many of you know who this is? This is the bad boy of art. This is the bad boy of art. Do you know who that is? His name is, you know? Come on. Pablo Picasso.
Oh, okay.
Pablo Picasso. This is rude man. Rude. You know? He's so good. Oh man, he's just too good. You know? He was very active till, I think, to his almost early 90s. Just still painting, you know? Crazy. This is one of his pieces. Do you guys know the title of this piece? Any of you? It's called Guernica. There's a town in Spain that was bombarded by this general Franco, fascist military regime, and wreaked havoc on not just soldiers, but just farmers. They're just annihilated farmers, and this speaks really loudly. You know, it's a mural about the size, I don't know, from over here to here, you know, but it speaks very loudly at the atrocity of human sin, really. You know, it confronts it dead on, and there was actually a very interesting documentary that I was watching. They were trying to have a press conference. I think it might have been with our U.S. soldiers, but they had this painting, so they had to cover it up because it was so loud. You know, long after good old Pablo was dead, right? But we have in this picture a mother who's crying with a dead baby. We have a soldier with a broken sword laying down. We have a horse neighing in agony. All the while there's this light, kind of shining the light to the truth of what is going on. There's like an angelic figure looking on at all of this. There's another woman who is, I don't know if it's a woman or a man, but it's also in despair. Really actually a pretty powerful image. Another one of Picasso's paintings. This is it's called Mother and mother and her child. One of the most archetypal, beautiful images. How many of you agree that the picture of a mother and her child is almost sacred? The image is a sacred image, right? Yeah, it's a beautiful image. There's a reason why such images are powerful to us. It has not just survival value, but it points towards something much larger, which we're going to get to, if Lord permits, in a short while. Yeah. How many of you know what this is? Guess who painted this one? Pablo Picasso. Yeah, I would. This is called Celestina. Celestina is a story. I think you could maybe educate us on this. Celestina is a what? What is she? Celestina. You know the story of Celestina, don't you?
No,
Being that you're from Argentina.
I used to know.
Oh, you know? Yeah, she's a witch. Celestina is a story about a witch. You know what this is? This is called a Weeping Woman. It's another Picasso painting. I don't know, maybe I'm the sadistic person here, but am I the only one that agrees that when you see a woman that's crying, there is something that's beautiful about that? I'm not saying I want to make women cry because I think they look beautiful. That's not what I'm saying, but when you see a woman cry, does it make your heart soft?
Yeah.
Does it make you want to go to that woman and help her, or just wonder why they're crying? Right? There's that, it softens you, right? I think there's a Bible passage about that. A sad face is good for the soul. Right? How many of you know what this is? This is not Picasso, by the way. It's my next hero, the other guy. This guy I really like a lot, because he's another tragic figure, but he's not like a... This is called Irises by Vincent van Gogh. It is, in 1987, it was the most expensive painting that was ever sold. Do you know where it is right now? If you guys want to go see it, it's actually at the Getty Villa, or at the Getty Center. At one point, it was sold for $53 million, but the person that bought it couldn't pay it all, so they had to return to the Getty. More contemporary images. Okay, this is when the art stuff was being stamped out, banged out at the industrial rate. Because of the Industrial Revolution, art also changed form. This is Andy Warhol, Marilyn Monroe, and we also have not just really lofty subjects, but we have also found beauty in the commonplace, in the mundane, like this Campbell soup, Okay, I just had to throw it in there because I'm a guy. Yeah, all the guys are like, yeah, beautiful. You guys know what this is? This is the most beautiful car in the world, okay? This is the McLaren F1. It's a Scottish-built automobile. It has a center cockpit. The driver sits in the middle, right? And then there's 2 seats on the side. And the wings go up, the doors go up, and it has an engine that's, I think, about 800 plus horsepower. It's super fast. Top speed of, I think, 230 some miles per hour. Every guy's like, yeah, that's beautiful, I don't know why we call automobiles sexy, but we say, oh yeah, that's sexy, right? I don't know how we associate a piece of machinery with sex, but there's something kind of perverted about the way we look at objects, Basically, what this leads to is the following caveats, There's some warnings about beauty as we experience it, is that beauty commands what? Desire. When I look at the McLaren F1, I want that thing, I dream about it one day, driving my McLaren F1 with a pretty girl on one side and another pretty girl on the other side, Fantastic. Beauty also wields power. I think it was Marilyn Monroe, I forget who, but when she was 5 years old and she climbed up a tree, she knew she had power when 4 guys rose to the occasion to help her down at a very early age, I don't know if it was Marilyn Monroe or I think it was Shirley Temple. It was Shirley Temple that said that. Yeah. And by itself, beauty is as pleasing as it is. Beauty, it seduces relentlessly. It's constantly attacking you. It's constantly grabbing your attention and commandeering your where you are looking, So much so that Jesus would say, it's better to pluck your eyes out, and go to heaven whole. I mean, to go to heaven maimed or without your eyes, than to go to hell, with your body intact, right? Yeah. I think the warning is not a hyperbole. I think that I'm speaking just from my personal experience. When it comes to beauty, it could be an object that we just saw, or it could be a painting, or it could be just anything that just adorns our reality. It's always commanding my attention, And to someone who has a heart for arts and things like that, you suffer under it. Ask any artist who has an artist soul. You ask them, you sit down with them, and you will know that they suffer under it. So here's the good news, So what's this all leading to, right? We're going to go to the tertiary level. This is the higher level. I think this is where, when Paul says the third heaven, I think this is where it's at, The tertiary level, all right? Are you guys excited? I am, because, yeah, a little bit. It gets a little complex, the jargon gets more theological, It encompasses the ultimate creativity in both the natural and the artificial realms. Let me explain what I mean by that. When we were looking at the primal stuff, the horizontal lines, the vertical lines, the wavelengths of light, all that stuff that we find in reality. At the tertiary level, we at least begin to think, maybe these things were created by someone. Maybe there was a designer, That is what is invoking in the minds of some people that have, I don't want to belittle the people that would be unbelievers, but the people that would be prone to questioning in that direction, Instead of thinking, yeah, this could have been made all arbitrarily, randomly, by chance, but there is something that kind of in your heart is saying, maybe there's someone that made these things with a specific reason why they should look that way, appear that way. There's a function behind the form, It indicates to the designer. Ultimate creativity, of course, leading to, God. There's a second thing, connective. It's not just, it's overarching between the first two levels. If you remember, I talked about the first primary level, just at the sensorial experience, right? But there's also the next level, which is our insights, right? It connects all that, in this tertiary level. It makes sense of those things. And it allows us to judiciously choose one over the other. There's also the eternal aspect. I think is it in the Ecclesiastes where it says, He has placed eternity in our hearts, and He has made everything beautiful in its own time? That's in the Bible, right? Okay. When we're looking at the divine, we see that it's when we think about God, when we fathom God, it's unconfined, It's God, There's no physical delimitations that we are under. He's completely free, but He's self-limiting nevertheless. Now that's going to take some time for the unchurched folks that will be here to go to church and listen to in what ways He was self-limiting. And it's not arbitrary, God has made certain promises. God has made certain rules to stay in a static way that we can find trust. Was that your first song, Trust? We have confidence in Him. Wasn't that your first song? It was called Trust. And this is the big one. The source of beauty itself is the one who makes things beautiful in its own time. My contending argument tonight is that God is the source of all beauty. Without God, you cannot perceive beauty. The same poet, Charles Bukowski, wrote this poem, I met a genius on the train. He's talking about a 6-year-old boy, who's looking at the beach and looking at the ocean. And he says, it's not pretty. And Bukowski is so happy to hear that because he just realized that it wasn't pretty. At that moment, maybe devoid of the joy of God, he could not feel the beauty that was present or that was being communicated through his eyes. And it's perfect. Finally, at the tertiary level, everything that's in God is perfect. You guys know that verse where all things happen for the benefit of those who love God. In that way, all the errors that might be committed in our lives, all the wrongdoings of our past, they all have been instrumental for you to gather here in one way or another. when you have a meeting with God, when you have met with God, all of those things have played some role in you being there at the point of contact with God. So that's a tertiary level that I want to delve into a little bit more, and I'm going to rely a lot more on graphics now. Okay, going back to art. Going back to the caveat of the danger of beauty. This is what happened in Genesis 3. It records it plain as day. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food, she was thinking with her stomach first, and then pleasing to the eye, right there. I guess the stomach is actually the primary. Maybe the eye is the secondary, right? And also desirable for gaining wisdom. She took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it, right? So what we're going to see is how that played out through the Bible, and I'm going to just show pictures of the classics, the masters throughout most of the Renaissance era that have painted these sceneries that comes from the Bible that can be both tragic, it could also be very joyful, but it nevertheless is beautiful because it's true. This is what happened. This William Blake. You guys know who William Blake is? Tiger burning bright in the forest of the night. He's a poet and he's a mystic. And he drew this picture. This is Eve taking the serpent right here is giving the fruit. He's actually putting it into her mouth. And Adam is just checking out, I don't know what he's checking out. He's looking the other way, right? Bad Adam. This is a Tintoretto from the 1550s, another version. This is where she has probably taken the bite already and is giving it. Yeah. Oh, this apple right here, by the way. You notice the apple was bitten into? It was bitten into. Do you think that this is just a... You don't think so? You don't assign that meeting? Oh man, we need to have a talk later. Yeah, the first Apple computer was sold for $666. I do not think that this was an accident. I believe that the Apple CEO, these guys had during their free time, were probably playing with Ouija boards and probably, right? Yeah, probably. And why not?
A lot of people do.
Yeah, I could see it happening. But that doesn't mean don't use Apple. First murder recorded, the murder of Abel by the same fellow, Tintoretto. Tragic human occurrence, It's not, the first murder, by the way, is a fratricide. It's a blood brother. One blood brother killing the brother from the same mother, And this is the first mourning by another. Now, this is definitely a sad picture, wouldn't you say? But would you agree it's beautiful? I find it deeply beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay, this is Noah. I don't know. I wanted to skip because Noah could get really long. But if you haven't seen the movie, like I have, maybe we should go check it out. I hear it's pretty interesting. When I picture Noah, I don't picture someone like him. I picture somebody a lot older for some reason. But I hear it's good. Was it good? Those of you who saw it, it was all right.
It was okay.
It was unbiblical. That's the biggest. Come on, They took too much liberty with that. They're not.
They gotta make it mainstream.
Yeah.
It's not like a superhero movie.
Oh, it was?
It's kind of...
Oh, Noah was a superhero. Yeah, I can see that. Noah was a righteous man among all the people that were wicked. So he was kind of a
Not
superhero.
exactly that kind of sense.
Oh,
Go
okay.
watch it.
Okay, we'll go talk about that later. This is the Confucian of Tongues. Gustave Doré, by the way, very, very prolific illustrator of biblical art. Good stuff. Some of the renditions that he does of Satan, oh man, it's on the money. It's really, really good. The Confucian of Tongues, the anti-Pentecost, right? This is the anti-Pentecost. Yeah. We have also the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. If you're able to see the brushstrokes, it's amazing. It's like very, very finely done here, and where it says sulfur was raining from the sky, you get the sense of this kind of ominous glow from a distance, as they're fleeing over here, for their dear lives. Do you know what this is? Another William Blake This is Lot and his daughters. Oh no, Pastor Charlie, no you didn't. You know, this is a tame version, right? I mean, the way it happens in the Bible, they're in a cave, and the girls get the daddy drunk, you know. But here is a modern edition. That's just a stark, and the darkness. You can see the darkness. It tells a story, you know. And we don't know what kind of story it really is, you know. But it's a very provocative painting that this fellow, Roger Willems, paints. And he names it Lot and His Daughters. This is a very famous painting. Man, I forget the name. This is Rembrandt. Rembrandt, the granddaddy of all Renaissance painters. This is that gruesome scene, you know, where a lot of people just have to walk away from the Abrahamic religion just because, what? You know, God asked him to sacrifice his one and only son. Have you guys heard that story before? Have you heard that story before? About how God asked that? This is
the king.
You remember? Okay. So Abraham was a patriarch, and I said, oh, by the way, this was a difficult childbirth, right? They were barren for a long time. In their 90s, they get this child, and God says, hey, this one, bring it up. And then the angel here intervenes and says, no, don't do it. This is, can you guess what this is? This is also another William Blake painting. Yeah, Jacob has a dream of this ladder. Now, I dream, how many of you have a straight ladder? When you read the passage, do you guys have a straight ladder?
Yes.
You do? Do you have a spiral ladder? No? You don't get any ladders? You have an escalator? Elevator? Elevator with music? Okay. Alright. Anyway, yeah, so we have this. We have another rendition of this Jacob's ladder. It looks kind of surprisingly like the modern image of the double helix. Our genetic, you know. Oh, this is another poignant painting. The scene. This boy over here. You know who this is?
Joseph?
Yeah, it's Joseph. And he's being sold by his brothers to a slave trader in Egypt. Poignant. Poignant. Sad painting, but still, I think it's still beautiful, you know? Yeah. Oh, here we go. Joseph and the Potiphar's wife. You have no idea how much time I spent to get a decent picture of this, because there's a lot of the older, they're piquant, you know, they wanted to show a little more skin, you know. It's borderline erotica, you know. But this is young Joseph fleeing from the advances of Potiphar's wife. Oh man, there's a little nudity here, sorry. But that's why we're here at our gallery, right? This is the, this is not taught in Sunday school, at least I hope not. This story in Genesis of Judah and Tamar, you know, controversial story. This is Judah over here, you know, and this is Tamar, his daughter-in-law, right, that could not get pregnant.
No.
And all of his sons that would sleep with her, you know, would start dropping dead. They would die, you know. And so she took matters into her own hands, and she just waited outside, you know. And then sure enough, this guy Judah acquired her services because he thought that she was a prostitute. He did not know that this was his own daughter-in-law, right? And later on, after they sleep together, she inquires about payment. What are you going to pay me? You know, oh, I'll send you a couple of goats. You know, but how do I know you're going to send me the goats? Give me something that I can hold on to as like as a promissory note. And so he gets this object as a signet and some kind of staff or something. I guess that's what she gets. And then later on when she's found to be with child, they all say, hey, you know, she was acting like a prostitute. She got pregnant by sleeping with somebody there, you know. Let's burn her. Let's just stone her and kill her, you know. And then she says, yeah, but, you know, the baby's father is the person that these items belong to. And then she produces the items. and happens to be Judah. And this is just kind of snuck into the story between Joseph, but this is actually a crucial story because Jesus, Christ, comes through his lineage. Yeah. Wrap your mind around that one, huh? It's like beautiful and kind of wacky at the same time, right? This is Pharaoh. A lot of stained glass art, you know. A lot of churches back in the old days very ornate because beauty was important. There was a big controversy throughout church history between having the ornate Catholic kind of buildings and Orthodox buildings, and then the Protestant, after the Protestant Reformation, there was this, you know, the movement for aniconism, you know, removing all the effigies and I don't know if that's good or bad, but that would be for us to discuss, you know, over a beer or something. Anyway, this is the poignant reunion scene. This is Joseph, and this is supposed to be Benjamin, the youngest. The significance between Joseph and Benjamin is that they were both from the same mom. And I think the mom that
Beautiful mom.
Yeah, the mom that Jacob really loved. You know, Jacob worked for 14 years. He slaved under for 14 years for this woman, and so this is the two brothers from that mom, and then these are the other brothers that sold him into initial slavery. Okay, so now we're gonna fast forward to we're gonna be taking more greater leaps now because we're running out of time. But this is Charlton Heston in that epic movie called The 10 Commandments, right? Have you seen it?
I've heard of it.
You should watch it. You should really watch it. We should make it an event. We should all get together and watch it. Yeah, he hasn't seen it yet. Yeah, can you believe that?
No.
Yeah. You know what though? I haven't seen Sound of Music either. So
Really?
yeah. like what? Sacrilege. These are actually not famous paintings. This is just something that I found on the internet that talks about the biblical event of the fire, the pillar of fire leading the Israelite camp.
And the tabernacle.
And this is the tabernacle. Yeah, the tabernacle here. And this is the Jewish camp over here. The Jewish camp. It's crazy. You know?
Well, you got this picture, Mr. Charlie?
Yeah?
They did a very fine job of interpreting Exodus because the tabernacle is indeed outside the camp. You see?
It's central to the camp, is it not?
No, because after the idolatry of the little camp,
Yeah.
God basically told Moses, I'm not going to stay with my people. My tabernacle will be outside the camp.
Oh, wow.
That's why it's outside the camp.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But the camp does not surround it. I'm thinking like the tabernacle is central to the camp.
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, one thing too is that if you look at the photo, you'll notice that there's different groups. It's because of the 12 tribes of Israel.
Thank you for pointing that out. That's an excellent point. There's 12 tribes of Israel, the kiddies in the house.
Awesome.
This is the tabernacle here. Another thing, the reason why I put this up here is because when the tabernacle was built, it was actually with specific instructions on how it should appear, what kind of material to use, and these produce a structure that was beautiful. It was pleasing to the senses. You know? And here's the embarrassing golden calf incidents. You know, Nicholas pushing. This is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Have you seen that?
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Fantastic movie, you know. I mean, there are some like ancient astronaut theorists. There's some people that actually really believe that there's some magical, like outer world technology. They're speculating that this was like from UFOs and stuff. You know, there are people that, but don't listen to them, okay? All right. And also, it says aroma pleasing to the Lord. You know, offer burnt offering. So it goes back to remember I just said about the smell. Beautiful smell is important, pleasing. You know, this was kind of important, right? And then there's a blood sacrifice, which comes with the Leviticus, right? And then there's the lamb. Right? Have you guys ever seen a lamb actually go down? I saw when I was in Tajikistan, we did this monster hike. We hiked like for a long time, and we got to this pristine lake area, and it's cold up there, and we're all hungry, and there were some shepherd boys, and this guy sold the young lamb in front of us, and it was killed right in front of me, and it just seriously, it goes down in complete silence, and the way it goes down is so docile, it's so gentle, like it was falling on its knees first, and then went to the side. We ate every part of that lamb, by the way, and it was delicious. Okay, this is coming from outside of the Pentateuch into the Hexateuch. Can you seminary nerds back there tell me what this is? Okay, you can. Okay, good. Anybody else? Yeah, this is Rahab right here. She's Rahab the prostitute, and this right here is the red cord that they're agreeing to display, and they'll pass over that house. Right? This is actually a prophetess. It's again Gustave Doré, who does the painting of Deborah the prophetess, one of the female powerhouses. This is Gideon and 300 marching in. This is a Judge Samson. Yeah. We're going to just stop at Judges, because I'm not going to show you a picture through every 66 books of the Bible, I was actually going to do that, but I just, we'll go to a moment of silence where we'll just contemplate a little bit on this person over here. Remember I told you about the origin of beauty, where beauty pours out from? The beauty has capacity to inspire, I want you to gaze upon this painting and then tell me if it's beautiful, if Christ is beautiful. This is, for those of you who went to the greatest seminary in the world, Fuller Theological Seminary, we're very familiar with this. It's staring at us every single day, but I got to tell you, Pastor James, I walk by it without giving it a second look. We go through class, we don't look at it, but it's after the fact. After I graduated, I think about it and go, oh man, that was a really amazing piece of sculpture. It's life-size work. I actually met the sculptor. More details. More details. Something poignant about God coming to us, and even though He could have just destroyed us like Zeus would have, if he was a Greek god, instead He dies. He dies, exposes our wickedness, and yet forgives us, pleads for forgiveness. I imagine him asking God right here, forgive him. And of course, crucifixion by itself would be incomplete. The gospel would not be complete if we didn't talk about the resurrection. One of my favorite paintings of all time. This guy right here, do you know who this is? I like this guy, he's superstitious. He's doubting, I'm not going to believe, I'm not going to believe until I see the wounds with my very own eyes. And the painter went the extra mile with this one. So, just, gruesome, actually. Mischievous. Kind of fun. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you very much. This is the final argument for my thesis. I hope that I've delivered it well. Beauty begets of God. Beauty comes from God, because He was the one that designed it. When you're appreciating beauty, it's not beauty alone in itself. You're actually praising God. May I suggest that, And when we're doing that, we're actually glorifying Him. When we're saying, man, that's awesome. The sky is beautiful. The sun is, when you have a beautiful day, and the beautiful day is not just with your looks, but like the temperature. Right now, I'll bet you when you walk out, you go, it's a beautiful night. feels good on your skin, you know, and tactile, the future of night, right? To the aesthete, the person who has or affects to have a special appreciation of art and beauty, completes his or her experience in life by worshiping God. You know, when we don't worship God, it's like, that's cool, it's a nice day, but it's like, you know, when you go to like a good game, or when you watch a good movie, don't you like to say, hey man, that was a great movie? Don't you like to say that? It's like the aftertaste of that, what you just experienced, is being affirmed and you're praising it, right? But when we're praising God, we're affirming our entire life and the glory divine that it is there, provided for us by Him. And beauty begets out of love, finally. Yeah. For the whole time I didn't mention only love not once, maybe just once when I was talking about the baby and the mother. But finally, beauty begets out of love, for God is love. This is in Scripture. So if unbelievers were here, I don't know how they would react to this kind of a presentation, but what I'm hoping is that in the future, if we have gatherings like this, that we will be able to create a space where the believers will be able to share what we oftentimes just don't really think about and maybe even take for granted.